rubber. In 1877, Henry Radley introduced the rubber seed into Malaya. The rubber tree grew well in the warm climate, and soon rubber plantations were laid out everywhere. The automobile car industry needed rubber for tires. Malaya quickly became a leading producer of rubber in the world. Need for new markets. These were needed so as to sell British goods and products. In the 1870s, it was rumored that Germany was going to extend her control over northern Malaya. The British had to intervene quickly to prevent this. Need for new base. In 1869, the Suez Canal was opened, reducing shipping time for Britain to Malaya from 4 months to 6 weeks. The Strait of Malacca became very busy as it provided the fastest route to Asia from India. New British bases were needed as port and a base for the British Navy. Need for social stability for economic development. Conflicts among the local led to chaos which badly affected trade. And then its process of British intervention in Malaya. Residential system. Through the Penco Treaty, the residential system was introduced into Malaya. This was a form of indirect colonial rule. Retaining the Sultan made the residential system more acceptable to the Malays. However, there were several problems with the system. The resident was to maintain duties and order, collect revenue, develop and administer the state. He was to advise the Sultan, not control him or the state. However, the resident was not given a police force or army to enforce order. The Sultan reminded the ruler of the state in charge of Malay customs and matters. However, he also had to take the advice of the resident and was less involved in the governing of the state. He lost the authority to make or enforce laws, as well as to collect revenue. Instead, he received a generous allowance from the British. Tightening of British control, formation of the Federation. The four residential states had different administrative systems, which made them difficult to manage. Businessmen and investors found it confusing as well. By making the four protectorates into a central administration, there could be more efficiency. Revenue could be used to help poor states. The new federated government took charge of important matters: police, public works, telegraph, railways. Law and justice were enforced to maintain trade. The Sultan hoped that the new FMS would reduce the power of the four residents, allowing them to retain the influence in the state council. In reality, the sultans became even less involved, and the interest of the FMS became more important than the individual state. Completion of British control over Malaya. Northern Malay states for a long time. The Northern Malay states, Perlis, Kedah, Kelantan, Terengganu were vassals of Siam. The British wanted Siam as a buffer between British Burma and the French in Vietnam. They therefore did not interfere in the NMS. However, there were fears that other European nations were keen to obtain advantage in the NMS, each naval base and coaling stations for steamships. In 1909, Britain and Siam signed the Bangkok Treaty. Siam transferred the four NMS to Britain, hoping that this would improve relations with Britain. In return, the British helped the MMS pay off their debts, provided a loan to them to construct railways. The four NMS were now known as the UFMS. The Sultans received British advisor. Soon after, the state of Johor also joined in the UFMS. Let's go to the part 2. Impact of British colonial rules to Malaya-ethnic relations. First one is economic impact. Development of tin and rubber industries. These new industries became the pillars of the Malayan economy. Tin. By the 1900s, the tin industries were controlled by European companies who had large amounts of capital. They used modern equipment such as the tin dredge to excavate large amounts of tin. European capital, money, and the Chinese labor made the FMS the world's largest producer of tin. Rubber. The car industry worldwide led to a huge growth in rubber plantations in Malaya, funded by European capital. Larger plantations were managed by Europeans and employed Indian laborers. Rubber surpassed tin as Malaya's chief export product. Both European investors and even local Malaya and Chinese small plantation owners profit greatly. Other crops such as pepper, sugarcane, gambir, tea, coffee, and tobacco were also introduced into Malaya. Once again, European investment funded this project. Creation of an export-oriented economy. Malaya now supplied and sold cash, crops, and raw materials to the world. Wages and income now depended on the prices of their products, which could rise and fall according to demand. Development of infrastructure. New roads, bridges, harbors, railways were built to connecting mines and rubber plantations. The FMAs had a railway line laid out to link estates, plantations, and factories to towns, cities, and ports. New jobs in transportation were also created. Standardization of currencies. Before intervention, several types of currency were used in Malaya: Spanish dollar, Penang dollar, local coins. In 1899, the British established the Currency Board to standardize currency. The board issued all notes for the country. By 1903, the street dollar was used in the street settlements, the FMS and the UFMS. This resulted in more trade and increased foreign capital flowing into the tin and rubber industries. Strategic colony composed of Penang, Malacca, and Singapore. It belongs directly to the British Colonial Department and is a British royal colony. The British monopolized almost all senior positions in the administrative system. Malay Federation, which consists of Perak, Selangor, Negri Sembilan, and Pahang. The upper class of the Sudan and the noble ruled the middle class, local leaders, and the village leaders. The typical dictatorship of the patriarch is practiced in Sudan. The newly established Malay Federation is controlled by the Federal Assembly. Malay state consisting of Kedah, Terengganu, Perlis, Kelantan, and Johor. The 5 states maintain nominal independence. The Sudan retains the throne and implements the advisory system. Each state has a parliament. This kind of rules is more like an indirect rule system. Marginalization of indigenous Malays. British rule resulted in more Chinese and Indian immigrants coming into work. Settlements, towns, and cities grew with these increased immigrant populations. In some places, the indigenous Malays became the minority ethnic group. The British introduced the Malay land reservation system to protect Malay interests. This allowed land to be set aside only of Malays and could not be sold to non-Malays. However, this system also divided society and lined along racial lines, and later caused much interracial tension. Creation of plural society. Many more Chinese arrived to join earlier immigrants. Although many desired to return to China, most end up staying on in Malaysia, with many accumulating wealth. Workers also came from southern India to find jobs in the plantation. Many also became traders, merchants, and money leaders. Social divided due to limited access to education. Western education was made available to the more wealthy or Malay aristocrats who served in the service. Little education was provided for the common people. Many Chinese did receive education, but this was provided by local Chinese philanthropists who built Chinese schools. Indian children received little formal education. Because of this, Western education created an elite class that was segregated and separate from the larger masses. We can also see the following other impacts, namely conflicts, populations, education, religion, living habits, career differentiation, and the political party. The last part is comparison of Bangladesh with Malaysia. That time, Bangladesh was known as Bengal and was part of India In the early days, English traders frequently engaged in the hostilities with their Dutch and Portuguese counterparts in the Indian Ocean. The East India Company achieved a major victory in the Battle of Swali in 1612 as Swali in Surat. The company foothold in mainland India with official sanction from both Britain and the Mughal Empire. In 1617, Charles II granted part of the land to the East India Company and established an army and rights of youth within its control. In 1773, Lord North decided to overhaul the management of the India Company with the Regulating Act. This was the first step to the eventual government control of India. The Act set up a system whereby it supervised, regulated the work of the East India Company. The company had taken over large areas of India for trading purposes and had an army to protect its interests. The East India Company Act was an act of the Parliament of Great Britain intended to the East India Company's rule in India under the control of the British government. The act provided for the appointment of the British government. The act provided for the appointment of Board of Control, provided for joint government of British India by the company and the Crown, with the government holding the ultimate authority. In the 19th century, Governor Richard Wellesley began a massive expansion of his territory. He used three methods: that the system of subsidiary alliances, outright war, and the assumption of the territories of previously subordinated rulers. The first steps were taken toward self-government in British India in the late 19th century with the appointment of India councillors to advise the British Viceroy and the establishment of provincial councils with India members. The British subsequently widened participation in legislative councils with the Indian Councils Act 1892. Municipal corporation and districts boards were created for local administration and included elected Indian members. Indian Councils Act of 1909, also called Parliamentary Reforms, series of reform measures enacted in 1909 by the British Parliament, the main component of which directly introduced the elevative principle to membership in the imperial and the local legislative councils in India. It allows Indians limited power in the central and the provincial legislatures. In order to protect the security of colonies around the world, Britain entered the Second World War and had no time to pay attention to the colonial rule of India and broke the colonial rule of India. In July 1942, the National Congress Party made a completely independent request to the British authorities. The document drafted pointed out that if Britain did not agree with its request, mass disobedience was about to erupt. In August 1942, the Mumbai meeting of the Central Committee of the National Congress Party passed the Exciting India Resolution, marking the official start of the withdrawal from India movement. The Provisional Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, most popularly known as Mujibanga government, was established following the Declaration of Independence of East Pakistan on 10 April 1971. It was the supreme leadership of the Bangladesh Liberation Movement, and then its political impact won. In order to effectively manage India, the United Kingdom established a modern civil service system in India. In 1861, the British government enacted the India Civil Service Law, which adopts the principle of selecting and appointing civil servants through competitive examinations that began in 1855. The legal form is fixed and gradually formed into a system. The British colonial government also promulgated a series of other decrees, which attacked the caste system from all aspects. These statutes gave all Indians equal status in law, and the legal inequality in low castes and untouchable was basically overturned, which provided some convenience for the rise of low castes in India. At the same time, the British stoked rivalries between Hindus and Muslims, which had lain dormant during the previous 500 years of Muslim rule. Class conflicts between Muslim peasantry and Hindu intermediaries during Muslim rule had previously been diffused by the fact that these intermediaries themselves were agents of the Muslim rulers. And then its political impact too. British rule in Bengal simultaneously promoted the force of unity and diversion in the society. The city-based Hindu middle classes became the far-right champions of all India-based nationalism. Economic exploitation of Bengal provoked an intense reaction against the British Raj, although grievances against the British varied from community to community. The Hindu middle classes, who referred to themselves as the Bahadurlok, were the greatest beneficiary of British rule. They originated primarily from the trading classes, serving as intermediaries of revenue administration, and occupy subordinate jobs in the imperial administration. And the last is economic impact too. The establishment of British rule deprived the immigrant Muslim aristocracy ashraf of state patronage. The immigrant Muslim, upper caste Hindu coalition, which characterized Muslim rule, was replaced by a new coalition of British and casteist Hindus. The new land settlement policy of the British ruined the traditional Muslim landlords. The immigrant Ashraf classes, which had hitherto been disdainful of their native coreligionists, saw the political support of these downtrodden Muslim peasants who were being exploited by Hindu landlords and moneylenders. The Ashraf manipulated the insecurity of these less privileged Ashraf without giving up their upper class exclusivity. The conflict between Ashraf and Bahadurok was reinforced by the rivalry between Hindu and Muslim middle classes for the patronage of their imperial rulers. In the 19th century, both Hindu and Muslim middle classes expanded significantly. That's all for our group presentation. Thank you for watching.